Hello friends, today we are going to listen to an old story of Pinocchio. Remember the way our mother used to tell us, don't ever lie, otherwise your nose will become longer and longer like Pinocchio. So today we are going to revive the story. Let's start. Long time ago, there was a woodcarver called Geppo. One day he started making a puppet that he could make dance and run and leap like an acrobat. He named the puppet Pinocchio, a name he hoped would bring him luck. But imagine Geppo's surprise when his puppet began to move and talk by itself. He even ran away like a naughty little boy. One day, a large cricket appeared at Geppo's. He introduced himself to Pinocchio as the talking cricket. He warned the little puppet to be good and behave himself, or he would be in great trouble. But Pinocchio paid no attention to the warning. He enjoyed being naughty and only wanted to have fun. In fact, Pinocchio even chased the cricket with a wooden hammer because he did not want to listen to his advice. Pinocchio wanted to be like real boys and go to school. So Geppo sold his coat to buy a spelling book. Pinocchio started out for school. He had only gone a short distance when he heard a lot of noise and came to a circus show. Wanting to see the show, he sold his book to a passing merchant and used the money to buy the ticket. The circus people realized that Pinocchio was not a real boy at all, but a puppet. They shouted for him to join them on the stage. And what a commotion they all made. The owner of the show was terribly angry and threatened to chop Pinocchio up for firewood for coming and causing a disturbance. But Pinocchio begged for mercy. He promised to leave and not to cause any more trouble. Then he told how Geppo had sold his coat for a school book, and he admitted that he had been very foolish to sell his book to buy a ticket for the show. Now he said he would try to be wiser if he could go home. The circus master listened and felt very sorry for him. Then he gave him 5 gold pieces to buy the book and coat. Pinocchio thanked him and promised to go straight home and try to act more wisely this time. He did not get very far before he met a lame fox and a blind cat. Knowing that Pinocchio had money, they pretended to be his friends and invited him to have dinner with them in a nearby inn. They had dinner and went to bed. While Pinocchio slept, the fox and the cat, who were not really lame or blind at all, worked out a plan to rob him of his money. They got up, dressed in black to look like a highwayman, and hid in the forest. When Pinocchio came past on his way home, the fox and the cat were waiting for him and hung him from a tree to try to take his money. But he held it in his mouth between tightly clenched teeth. Pinocchio's guardian fairy, a beautiful maiden with blue hair, lived nearby. She sent her dog to chase the cat and fox away and to bring Pinocchio to her castle. She asked Pinocchio how he had got into such a muddle. Pinocchio was very ashamed to tell her the truth, but every time he told a lie, his nose grew longer and longer. He was horrified. When he changed his mind and told her the truth, his nose went back to its normal size. Pinocchio, meanwhile, learned that lies will always be found out. So he promised to tell the truth and started for home. Once again, foolish Pinocchio met the fox and the cat. This time they urged him to plant his gold pieces and to leave them overnight so they would grow into money trees. Of course, while he slept, they dug up his money and disappeared. Sadly, Pinocchio started for home again. This time, he met some mischievous boys who told him of a wonderful place where they could enjoy themselves as much as they wanted. It was a land of holidays, games, toys, cakes, and candies. What they did not tell Pinocchio was that boys who got into trouble, they were changed into donkeys and sent away. Sure enough, before long, Pinocchio had become a donkey and was sold to a circus. He was taught to dance and jump through a hoop, but he did not perform well. He became lame, and since lame donkeys can no longer do tricks, he was thrown out into the sea to drown. As if by magic, when he hit the water, he changed back into a puppet and was swallowed by a huge whale. How dark it was inside the whale! Pinocchio started thinking. He was terrified. Why? Because the darkness frightened Pinocchio. He looked around and thought he saw a light coming towards him inside the whale. Sure enough, it was a flickering candle in a green bottle and was carried by Geppo. He could hardly believe it. He ran to the old man asking forgiveness. Geppo had also worried so much about Pinocchio that he had set out in a small boat to search for his puppet. The boat turned over in a storm, and Geppo and the bottle had been swallowed in one gulp by the whale. At last, Pinocchio had become wiser and more considerate. He wanted to repay Geppo for all the worry and the trouble he had caused him. He took Geppo's arm, and while the whale slept near the shore with his mouth open, Pinocchio led Geppo up the whale's throat and out of his mouth. They swam to the land and began the long journey home. They met the cat and fox, who by now were truly blind and lame. But Pinocchio, having learned his lesson, passed them by. He did not even look at them. Pinocchio and Geppo reached home at last. Pinocchio had really become very good. He cared for Geppo, cooked for him, worked, earned money and studied. Geppo became stronger and healthy once again. One night, Pinocchio dreamed that the good fairy with blue hair and the talking cricket came to visit him. They reminded him that boys who care for their parents, who behave and tell the truth, who learn and become wise will always get along in the world and be happy. At last, they approved of Pinocchio. At that moment, the dream ended. Pinocchio opened his eyes and looked around. He was no longer a wooden puppet. He was a real boy like all other boys. And his old puppet body was lying motionless on the chair. He ran to Geppo, who had gotten his strength back and was once again at work carving wood. After that, Pinocchio went to school like other boys and helped Geppo in many ways. So they lived together like father and son. And they were happy and contented for the rest of their lives. How was the story, friends? Comment and let me know. Like and share also. Your subscription button is grey, isn't it? If not, then press it and make it grey. See you next with another wonderful story.